I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Kimmy 65 is live. Oh, seven. What is going on? We're a week from CitizenCon, 6 days, I believe. I want to say literally 6 days. 6 days from SitCon itself. Hold on, SitCon Direct. Let's get that clear. SitCon Direct. To some, it's best case scenario. Low budget. Keep the devs on focus with what's to come. Then the other half of it is, oh wow, it's not the same, 2-day event. Recently, it just went to 2 days, but not the recent or the years past event time frames. I guess it's a balance of both, right? Good balance of both. And this gentleman I have here.
Feature we need for make a swamp experience a proper one is water injection.
Over the last some of the things
a lot of work has gone into improving the way our water reacts and renders. So naturally, we wanted to make a biome that highlights those advances.
Rumors. There's so many rumors. Potentially, we could be seeing this
swim through the water, you may come across obstacles
at CitizenCon, right?
Debris floating on the surface. They will react to the player character and can be pushed out of the way.
When you log into the stream, or when you log in, you actually see the news flash of terraforming. And so, lore in real time, they could potentially say, according to lore, that there has been another attempt, most recent attempt of terraforming Microtech, and the results are much better than the previous mistakes from what you would see with the Mars in lore. Mars was a mistake. It was kind of rushed because of the overpopulation of Earth. And then fast forward, they come to Microtech and try that again. And so I believe Planetary Tech / according to lore, is that third attempt of terraforming. Well, erasing the mistake.
Now, before I get to our second use case of the day, a quick disclaimer.
We could.
Obviously, all the things you're seeing here today, we're still actively working on. But
we could potentially see this right away. Without interruptions to live, we could potentially see this as a Planetary Tech introduction first. And once it's proven that it's not disruptive, you'll see them further build out potentially all of Stanton, as well as Pyro with Planetary Tech 5 come first or second quarter of next year. But this is their way of populating the updates here. And I think this is game changing in the way that we approach FPS. This will definitely call for night vision, or kind of think of the movie Predator when it was first introduced, the Predator itself. Infrared, thermal detection. Depending, and then this is also how you could also change out the different helmets that could do thermal. One could do sound, or radar pinging. But the choice is up to CIG in regards to, will one helmet have all the abilities, or do you have to have particular helmets on hand and change them out? It opens the door for strategy. If you're in the atmosphere, a location with atmosphere, you can change them out on the fly via your changing out the item in your backpack. And then the other end of that spectrum would be no atmosphere. Each party member would have a variation on their helmet, different capabilities. So you keep the helmet on, and it opens the door for communication between the parties of what they see or may not see.
The floor, herb and brush layer, we could almost do before, obviously missing the density. But now we also have the option to.
But this definitely opens up the door for
dynamically spawning epiphytes like
FPS
orchids or bromeliads attached to trunks and canopies of other assets.
and also potentially base building too. Having a base in a jungle environment.
With this and improved density is what will finally allow us to make convincing.
But it also opens the door to
And
make
the
it
best
very
part is,
dangerous as well
we
with
only need
creatures.
a lot of different species to create what we refer to as a canvas of a biome. The idea being
That's
we can vary what
that's
kind
the
of forest
con.
we have by
That
adding
there's
or
predators
replacing
out there, but
mass
then the pro of it is the potential
Now,
for collecting
to
of
get us
food,
certification, we
proteins,
identified like the Epibremia and the bromeliad
collecting of
into
flora and
important
fauna for
for the
medicinal
asset.
purposes.
Then obviously
So
you have
it
jungles
gives
for
you those
lianas
variations.
for a jungle. And we also made agrias, which add character to the herb and tree layer.
You can definitely climb those vines there.
For tall trees, we decided on a fairly generic rubber tree, as its different growth stages serve as a nice foundation for all height levels. And that's pretty much it, what we need to make a pretty good base.
Total
for
library
jungle.
right there.
Now, for our third and last use case, let's pretend the data indicates regular rainfall and
They've been
moderate
working on this for
temperatures.
quite a bit.
This climate would support a lot of different forests, but we also wanted to use this opportunity to explore extreme scale.
This has been well over a
And
year
industry.
ago, 11 months ago to be exact. This was 11 months ago. They've been working on it. And I think it's more of what they're working on in this regard is building the library and doing the checks and balances on how optimized it is whilst using the newest engine, which is Planetary Tech 5. Hence why I believe we will see an initial release in tech preview, but given the latest in our processes, this is going to be cool. If we can bring back the hover bikes, it probably will need an update, but I think they will scape this where they will create this environment so that there's not a lot of rocks that you can freely glide through. And so it's just a balance of kind of like what Chris liked about Terrata, just free flying. Now you're flying through a maze of trees and structures. And that opens the door for cat and mouse pursuits.
Now, for this one, we first looked at the different redwood biomes on
And
Earth
skill.
and tried to analyze what the most defining species of them are. With this understanding, we then
But
decided
this
on the
is
following path
interesting
to allow for a
because
fairly universal redwood
They
forest.
they
that will
have
allow us
worked
the
for
release
close
of
to a
support
year
variation
of
across
building this
continents
up.
and planets. A fairly common family of species for the ground levels of all redwoods are ferns.
All library.
In our case, the sword fern. We also made a huckleberry variant to provide some visual density for the shrub layer. To add some Jurassic vibes, we made tree ferns, as they can be found in New Zealand.
We may very well get
The most
a
important one, though, are obviously sequoias.
up-to-date
And they ended up being one of our
current
most
development
complex sets yet.
where they
As it
are in the
turns out,
process.
they can grow to be fairly
Citizen
ridiculous
could
in size.
direct. And you figure
It keeps going.
all you need is a good 5 to 7 minutes of, hey, this is what it is. This is what it looks like. We're planning to implement it at this time. You may get some communication that will receive it sooner
One
than
thing our
later
game's foliage
in a
is
tech preview channel.
sorely missing is
This will be great.
proper
And then that
to what's
5 to
happening
7
around.
minutes, they're done.
The goal here is to unify all forces
Just to show
from
you
all
what they've been up to.
Sorry for the horrible rhyme. All forces from all sources, wind, characters and creatures, ships, explosions, and whatever else, and have the vegetation behave accordingly. Now, as part of our tech improvements, we will be implementing a GPU-based simulation that's fit for our game scale. For now, we've set up the ferns with our existing CPU-based one to better visualize what it will feel like to walk amongst those giants. Also, with the biomes on our planets now being defined by where an individual
You just
object
said
wants to appear,
CPU-based.
we can
Now
extend
that
our
we have
map
Vulkan,
existence by having
there's
species
going to be a
invading
balance.
different biomes.
CPU and GPU
Making for
balances.
some unique locations, hopefully. Surely. Now, before I get to disappear off stage, I just want to say a big thank you to everybody involved, especially my team in Frankfurt for doing such amazing work and being all around great people. And also to all of you guys. I really hope you have a fantastic Citizen
So
Cup.
the Frankfurt
This
studio,
concludes this phase
they
of
are really
Genesis. So
working
please
on
welcome me
the
to the
Star
stage
engine
so I can tell you all
itself.
about the
They're
next
doing a
one.
lot of things. So they could very well build these tools and distribute it among developers within CIG who will be actually building up on the
Thank you.
moons and planets, building them
Hello,
out.
Citizen Con. All right. Those new planets and biomes were pretty, right?
I think there's also, they present an opportunity as well. They don't have to build everything out. They can make it so that it's true exploration. Whereas, yeah, the planets are built out, but it's up to you, the player, to discover what's there. Especially now that we have the jump point capability to jump to new systems. So they also have the opportunity or the ability to hold that jump point for quite some time. And maybe as a news broadcast, hey, it's closing, right? Or there's instability. It's signs that it's decaying. And you get updates on that. Now, let's say someone overstays their welcome in the jump point and it actually closes. So once that implodes on itself, you wake up back to your planet of origin. And all your assets that were there, they're transported over, or you have to reclaim. So I think that's a way for them to introduce new planets, actual exploration of unknown entities, where if they have a Pathfinder component or such, where they're looking purposely for these jump points, they discover one, they get into a new system, undiscovered system. It opens up for a while. I think this is a great opportunity for the developers to kind of mold and sculpt what could be a possibility for a system. And if it holds very well as a popular or a very enhanced location, they could definitely make it a sustained jump point location. So it opens the door for exploration for sure.
Your friends. As for that density, if you fly down to the planet, we want you to find something, let's say, every 100 clicks. But also improve the mission experience. So when you stay more on the planet, you're more immersed and you go from location to location. Just keep going. So going forward, we are modularizing all our existing locations and assets. And we're basically making a library of buildings and layouts that we'll be using to no longer work directly on the planet. The neat thing, all these modules and assets can be iterated upon and tested right in the editor for all the designers and artists.
Iterate
To
and
ensure
update
fun
it.
gameplay and interactive sandbox activity, and also make sure all the mission stuff is there. Basically, we're building a toolkit. So let's look at some of the things that we need to keep in mind as we're making that toolkit. First and foremost, we've got our art style and branding. We've got
Basically, we've seen this. going forward, they're in the process of delivering upon unique locations and art styles and a whole new list of features in their library that they can choose from. But this is just the beginning, and I think I truly believe that Chris wants each system to have its own unique flair and unique style upon your entering and you're discovering and you're seeing something totally different per system. So we're getting hints and bits and pieces of it, but I think at the end of the day, you're going to see some really unique things, especially when it comes to the point of them opening up a system that will house a alien culture. I think that's going to be the next step further down the road of not just Taveran or Xi'an or Banu, but other cultures in this alien cultures in the Star Citizen universe.
Things like Frontier for our settlements. We've got high-tech for the emergency shelters, but also utilitarian, like our bunkers and distribution centers. The richer the data, the richer these locations will be. Secondly, they all have a function. We've got mining for our mining outposts, farming for the farmsteads, or just places where people live. The function of the place will define the way the place looks as well, and its form.
Yes, that's exactly what I was saying.
Building a toolkit. So let's look at some of the things that we need to keep in mind as we are making that toolkit. First and foremost, we've got our art style and branding. We've got things like Frontier for our settlements. We've got high-tech for the emergency shelters, but also utilitarian, like our bunkers and distribution centers. Okay. The richer the data, the richer these locations will be. Secondly, they all have a function. We've got mining for our mining outposts, farming for the farmsteads, or just places where people live. The function of the place will define the way the place looks as well, and its form. And last but not least, the people as well, the faction and their loadouts.
Yes.
We've got lawful people, like the new Citizens for Prosperity in Pyro, unlawful, such as Xenofred, and sometimes not even no one. And the place needs to look a bit, derelict. In different places, you'll find different people.
They're going to continue this.
So,
build
now that
upon
we've made
this.
our toolkit and we've defined all this new stuff, let's start building thousands of locations. Yes, I said thousands.
Procedural.
So, to avoid the same issue of working on directly in the planet, I'd like to introduce to you Starchitect.
This is going to be huge. Starchitect. Basically, the beginnings of this is building your library. And not just building it and finishing it. It's a continuous build-up as ideas come across the board from developers on up to Chris Roberts. They have the opportunity to add to Starchitect. They have the tools to continue to build upon Starchitect. And so what it means in the result, you can have established systems that could go through a maturation period where it starts out as a derelict location, but then they're profiting, they're building up resources. Then you may see a maturation period where it could one day, not too far-fetched, go from a derelict or shanty town to a village to a city, and so on and so forth, to a huge enterprising location based upon how well people connect themselves to these locations, taking the data, looking at the resources. But yeah, it's iterative, like he said, that they have the ability to mature these points of interest, which is a strong possibility with what CIG can do with continued research and development. So this is an ongoing, evolving process that we will see.
what StarArchitect allows us to do is directly on a planetary scale scatter all these new libraries and modules and assets and no longer work directly on the planet. And it uses the same logical rule set as our emergent biomes.
What's up, Rizzy?
And it also gives us full control over the data that we set on these locations. So expect locations in places where they make sense. Let's kind of look at all this new Genesis data and all these new libraries and chuck it into StarArchitect and see what it gives us.
And what if they're incorporating AI into this?
As you can see, we're now able to make full-size locations, and they will look completely different based on where you'd find them. The layouts are controlled by the rules, and it will reflect its place in the verse. We've got farms, mining outposts, but even our older locations, such as the bunkers that you find on Stanton.
Progression, regression of locations. I would love to see that. And when I say progression, regression, you could see where, or it could be a sense of this location is developing, and then you see it, you see it physicalized. It's growing into a city, and it would not be out of the ordinary at some point to see and experience the vandal culture come in and just ransack this location and physically speaking, turn it to glass in a sort of speaking way, destroy it. It brings it back down to a shanty town where you have to build it up, or it's a continued struggling of raids by them that will regress those locations, and you bring in resources, it progresses it again. I think it's like Chris said, his expressions of a living and breathing universe. It adds to that narrative of what he's talking about, where this game, Star Citizen, serves to be a benchmark for all games, in the sense that they have this opportunity to bring this into the forefront that makes it so unique from so many other games that we play. Things that are static or on these rails that you go one direction, it's predictive. You can pretty much figure it out, and that's where you have instances of people drop off. They understand it, they've understood, or they know the code, then there's no challenge for them, there's no incentive for them to want to play. But when you add dynamics of this nature that have fundamental changes based upon resource management and placement of resources in one location, and then you have the dynamic of pirates, vandal, or any hostile force, even nature itself, meteor showers, storms, event horizons, all things that could, create dangerous environments, which will in turn enable the developers to reflect that and show that, and it becomes physicalized. And then you're able to see within the pros and cons of, can you profit from it? Can you gather resources from it for a time being? And it makes you look at the game in a different way, that there's a natural balance, there's a natural flow of things that happens in this universe. So it's just to say that it's not just about potential with this game. It's not about what could be. It's it's them having the ownership and the creative license to do these things, to make gameplay on a different level all its own, which will further highlight and make Star Citizen unique and playable onto a different level all of its own.
So let's look at an example and kind of use the tool to really, make a location. We can define the rules, as I've mentioned a couple times by now. So for our mining outpost, it wants to be near a resource. We can specify what this resource needs to be. But we can also give it suggestions where sometimes you'd find it here and sometimes you wouldn't. If the location has refineries, it might want to be near water to refine the resources. Then secondly, we can define what buildings should be there. So obviously we need mining buildings, houses for people to live as well, and even power buildings that we can leverage with the resource network.
Yes.
Starchitect will intelligently figure out where to place these and what needs to be at the location. Next up, farms. Its rules, well, temperature. Not every plant can live in every temperature, but the same with soil type. Only certain plants can be in certain grounds. And then we can query the seed map to determine what plants you would find there. What are the harvestables?
Yeah.
As for the targets, again, farm buildings, obviously, power buildings, houses, but even animals, such as our beloved quasi-grazers. And last but not least, derelict ships. We've got these all over the place currently. Rules, well, they'd be close to anti-air because they would be shut down. But even in harsh flight conditions, such as mountains or low visibility, you'd probably most commonly find them. Targets, well, crash ship parts, of course. Sometimes you'd find the full remains of a javelin, and the other time you might just find the nose of a starfarer laying around. So, let's talk about coherency. Sure, we can scatter all these locations everywhere on the planet, and you'll find them in places they make sense, but we can do better. You don't just want to find an outpost completely on its own, right? We want to make sure it really feels like people have built their lives here. So, let's talk about some missing bits. We want to tell tighter stories, such as the people's lives, but also logical exploration. If I find one thing, I expect to find something similar or something else nearby. We also need more data control. What defines one mining outpost being different from the other ones, aside from the harvestables? And also give the narrative developments. Make sure, people build near rivers, on mountains, they build near town halls, they build near distribution centers. So to hit that bit of our benchmark, we make sure that locations are near each other and group them together. The effect it gives is a fully developed landscape with vistas and points of interest all over. And we group them together in what we like to call a cluster, like this one, that has 13 locations. Let's talk about clusters. Clustering means generating locations near other locations. So, for example, if you find a distribution center, just like in the verse currently, I would find forward operating bases next to them. But if you go even further out, you'd find mining outposts to funnel those resources to the FOBs. Go out even further, you'd find caves around them, because that's where they might find some of the gems. And then we can even specify the data on a cluster level. All of the factions that live at this whole cluster, any mining outpost, that would be the same people, but also what commodities they sell, to find on what resource you'd find.
This is interesting right here in itself, where we talk about planets, we talk about moons, and I would say CIG has an opportunity to create areas on planets and moons where once we get crafting, once we get base building, once we get industrial facilities, I call them industrial facilities, but habitats that will feed into the economy itself, that will also promote and enhance what crafting will become. And so in turn, when you start to allow player volumes, once they ramp up with organizations and things of that nature, and having the tools to actually seed in these different centers or industrial modules or industrial modules that feeds into the economy, I could see definitely organizations planting their bases and setting up these facilities, which will then become a industrial or a part of the industrial machine that will feed back into the economy of Stanton or the pirate or the syndicate, right? But it would be strategically sound to place these centers and these buildings closer to a distribution center that will feed into the economic system.
It's about that bottom line, baby.
So it allows these orgs to actually, by placing these facilities near a distribution center, they can actually funnel things back into the economy, but also at the same time get themselves paid in a quicker rate, at a quicker tick rate than others who will travel several systems over to distribute or to distribute goods and such. I could definitely see a market, an open air market around a distribution center. Until we get the Banu Merchantman, it's kind of a means and a way for organizations to get themselves paid by setting up shop near these distribution centers. At the same time, it helps to free up development time on carving out a lot of detailed maybe missions and storylines and extra details for some of these locations, as specifically certain areas on a planet or moons that have distribution centers. It's going to be very interesting to see that pan out, and by giving the players an opportunity to create their own stories, their own reputations in the game, by having the tools and utilize them in a way that it will be economically sound for that player or their organizations. So this is the start of something very interesting right here.
So let's look at an example of the clusters. We have our mining cluster. Again, we can define what rules we should have. Rules, well, near a resource, just like our mining outpost, but also it needs to be on a lawful planet. We can target on a planetary scale where they would need to be. They need protection. As for the targets, well, caves, mining outposts, but even trade posts. Let's go to the other side of the spectrum. Before I do so, I forgot data. We can, on a cluster level, specify, again, what mineral commodities, but also what harvestable types you'd find are in that region. Now let's look at the other side of the spectrum, an unlawful cluster. What rules? Well, they need to be far away from any other cluster, because they want to be isolated and do their evil deeds on their own. And also on an unlawful planet, such as somewhere in the Pyros system. For the targets, outlaw outposts, crash ships, because they would shoot them down, and also...
Now going forward, he's referring to Pyro system because it's the only system, but Nyx is sort of like a quasi unlawful location. Yeah, the residents there, they kind of say, hey, as long as you're not breaking the law in front of my eyes or in front of my face, it's fine. But you're going to have more than just Pyro in regards to what is unlawful, what's considered outside the realm or the radius or the arm of the reach of the United Earth Empire. It's fair game. So it's dependent on the number of players who will populate certain locations. Then that it's in itself becomes unlawful with no governing bodies. But I think there's something to say. There's something there's conversation for that as well. I would love at some point to have the overlords be introduced into the game to kind of give a check and balance to clusters like this, where 07 Shimposta, that there's no governing law, it's open Wild Wild West. So I'm hopeful, and it makes great sense that you bring in rivalries to these unlawful organizations, because that's a balance. That's a check and balance. But overall, I'm anxiously awaiting to see what they do with the overlords, because they're part of the lore. They're actually vigilantes not criminals, but if you're working outside the law, you're almost wink wink considered a criminal because you're operating without commission from the law. But their narrative is we also are hunting down pirates. We're hunting down criminal organizations. And the next part of that I hope to see is not that it's just a NPC organization, but a sort of hybrid system where actual players are part of the overlords as well as NPCs. At some point, to see NPC overlords, organization of, let's say, a squadron of NPCs as well as actual players being part of the overlord organization coming in, and it's a check and balance to attack these syndicate or unlawful organizations that are outside the jurisdiction of the United Earth Empire. It makes for a cool dynamic.
Ruins from just places that just completely overrun. The data on this one, you'd find specific loadouts, and they'll be using weapons that you wouldn't find in any other legal system. And these weapons will be sold at the shops in these regions. So, now that we have a cluster, let's go even bigger. Just like our locations, we can put clusters near other clusters.
We definitely need
group them
dynamic
together,
for this.
ranging between 10 to 15 locations each. And we group this into what we call a sector. Like this one, that has about 120 locations. However, on a planetary scale, we can define how many sectors we should have, with each their own data and persona. And every single one of these locations is now ready for the mission system to hook up and give you gameplay, and for you to find a bunch of places on your own.
Find them. Nice.
And
Or
just on
create
this
your
side of the
own.
planet,
Hopefully.
can you guess the number? We've got about 3,042 locations. And again, this means as Starchitect, we're just able to, on a planetary scale, just define how many locations we need, what you'd find there, and to just give that full identity. Thank you for listening. And I won't just see you in the verse, but I'll see you in a denser verse.
Dynamic. More player population.
However, this was only the first phase of civilization. Let me introduce you to the stage, the person who will introduce life at these locations, Francesco Racucci.
Gentleman mentioned, a denser verse. All that means is we are awaiting the arrival of dynamic server meshing. Now, I think I have this theory or this inclination to say, well, it's obvious. Obviously, they're working on dynamic server meshing. It's obvious. It's out there. Benoit mentioned it, but I think it's being they're in. I think they're in the process of activating it because I've just noticed, or I begin to notice more 30Ks now, which was long gone for quite some time, and it was almost safe to say that, hey, they've actually gotten away from 30K, and I don't think this is a coincidence. I don't think this is something random. It's due to the fact that now they're introducing more servers, and these servers are functioning in a way that, as they described, that it is a cycle of spinning up, spinning down. And once I noticed I was experiencing a actual 30K, that alarmed me, and I said to myself, they're actually functioning. It's actually functioning behind the scenes without making it official notice or making it official statement. It's more of we're incrementally bringing it in. And it to me it says we may see dynamic server meshing a lot sooner than later. Um, and I think they're confident to the extent that they're not worried about putting it in a test tube or isolating it into tech preview channel. They're actually setting up to bring it into game by probably you may see it by the end of the year. But I am seeing the 30Ks mashed potatoes and gravy. Actually, Coffee says he actually had a 30K the other day. First one probably a year. That is true. That is true, Coffee. And I can only, in my gut, I'm feeling that this is actually dynamic server meshing behind the scenes. Not a damn dirty K. Yes, it's back for the moment due to what they're doing with the restructuring of their server backend system. It's changing, and I think it's not a thing of, well, I don't think you can incrementally add it in. It's an all or nothing approach, and I think what's the culprit behind the 30K is, as Benoit stated, each department, now that they are defined in each particular department, they have to work on their code. And so I think that was their alarm system went off with that 30K. Hey, this is pointing to this department. Hey, your code is this. You are now licensed and commissioned to go after it, chase it down and debug it, get rid of it, do whatever you have to do. If you need assistance, communicate that. But I think that's what they're seeing, that though they're working hard on cleaning up their code and getting their house in line with dynamic server meshing, the tools are flagging it, but at the end result is, yeah, it flagged it, but it also caused the 30K, which they are now, actively clearing it up. Hopefully it's a streamlined process where it's cleaned up and not having to, they're not having to call in the big guns to knock it out. But that's, to me, in my gut, that is what's happening behind the scenes. And make no mistake, I would not be alarmed or surprised that the dynamic server meshing implementation will happen by end of the year or the last patch. And you'll see possibly a count going up and staying at 800. Staying at 800. And I think beyond that, the goal is with 1.0, you have at least 1,000 players per server for 1.0. So 800 is another benchmark. I think we're going to 800 by end of year.
So, hi everybody. Benvenuti a CitizenCon. So, where are we today? So, my name is Francesco Rocucci, and I'm the director in CIG. Welcome to the next step of Phase 3. We will look into how life adapts to the laws of nature and how all the NPCs can interact pretty much with these incredibly vast and dense worlds that we just saw. So up to this point, we have seen how we are building the worlds. We start from the physical data set, and this is to make sure that what you see is not just beautiful and realistic, but also physically accurate. So the distribution of the elements that we have seen and the location and the POIs are influenced by geology, mission, narrative, and the lore. Those locations cannot be lifeless. We want the planets to basically leverage the space that emerge with life. So from an AI perspective, I will categorize the elements of those worlds into 4 macro groups. Emergent environment, that is everything we have just seen being built out of the physical data set. Users-made locations. So this includes everything that our designers or you players would create in the world. So something that is mankind-made and not predefined in the environment.
it says for us to create. That means we have the tools in our hands. We have crafting. That's the difference right there. We have crafting at that point.
Interior of those locations. Now, this is very connected to the previous point. The difference is that they represent usually a confined space where there is much more tight interaction. And for NPCs, is a lot about interaction with objects that we are usually used to in our everyday lives.
I think this is very important, what he's mentioning about interior locations. And I think Nyx is the exception. Castra will be the exception, due to its footprint and its smaller size. But going forward, I think the whole entire narrative have changed, and they've learned a lot from Stanton. Thank you, Stanton. But now you got to understand the approach now for these systems and the creation of these systems in a proper way. It's kind of like the analogy of what when they talk about the gold standard for ships. But this kind of holds a little tighter than, okay, it's a gold standard, but yeah, we need to put the internal components. It's gold standard, but oh, now we need to add the flight model. It's gold standard. Oh, but we need to add true engineering to the narrative of what now will become the new way of creating these systems. Like Stanton, you have Area 18, you have Orson, you have Lorville. And that one dynamic or that one common denominator is it's a landing zone. Period. That's it. Going forward with possibly the next system, right after Castra, I think, what's next? Stanton, we have Pyro, Nyx, Castra, and then Terra, number 5. The narrative totally changes, and you know where I'm leading this to. It's what's stated. They're going to now build up Terra, but they're also going to incorporate the interior locations as well, so that when they release, by the time that they're ready to release Terra, you have a fully functional location that you interact with in regards to the ships that land there. You go into facilities, you go into your own space. You have interiors within those city structures. And I think that's, well, going forward, that will be their intent on. We don't want to create a Lorville or create an Area 18 and then come back 3 years later and say, hey, but we're about to create the interiors now. I think the Stanton system itself has been a good benchmark and a template for what they need to do to bring everything up to a higher standard in regards to building things out. And the fact that they have this library, they have a metric on these assets of what's being created and adding them in procedurally, right? But then you have the artists that can come in and update the library itself. So expect that.
And then the day and night cycle. So in essence, the passage of time. That so far didn't have really a lot of impact on the gameplay. So to allow life to respect this world and conform to the rules that this environment defines, well, we want to improve our tools and workflow, and we want to distance ourselves as much as possible from a designer-driven approach. This is because, first, it's labor-intensive. It can be prone to
labor-intensive, night cycles, creating lighting. Now, hello, Vulcan, global illumination. Now that's the distancing of that intensive labor-intensive process of setting up lights and balancing lights, which will in turn not be balanced because an artist's eye and what they focus on, it will not balance out when you talk about the scale of this game. So global illumination will be a godsend to CIG because it frees up the developers to work from that labor-intensive task to other things that are more important for us as players.
bugs, but also because the scale of the words that we've just seen are very hard to be designer-driven in the markup. So we want to improve this workflow, and we will see
Errors.
how manual markup is also not usually the best option, because
Oh,
with
7
these
Vickers.
words that are heavily impacted by users and changes and customization, it's very hard to know in advance where interesting things are. So today I want to show you a couple of examples of what the IT team has been focusing on to make these systems supported and scale correctly to support these vastly dense dynamic worlds. So we'll look at perception in light and dark environments and dynamic cover generation. So attacking an outpost now must have a level of depth that goes beyond what we had. So layouts of the environment can change, vehicles may or may not be present, and PC can be anywhere. And if it's a bright day, well, we will be more visible, but our enemies will also be more visible. And if you choose to attack at nighttime, well, we'll attack in shadows. During darkness, it's going to be a bit harder to see our enemies, but we will also be harder to be spotted. And it will give us more opportunities to be stealthy and sneaky. How do we do that? So as you see, there is also a lot of different light conditions in this outpost. So in this scenario, we will start look at how perception is impacted by the day and night cycle. On the planetary surface, as we've seen in the outpost, natural and artificial lights are the two elements that will impact vision. And knowing that, you can use this to leverage your gameplay style to exploit basically all the environment. So what is perception? On the NPC level is the combination of data that we collect out of the senses. And vision is one of the senses and just tries to, in a way, simulates the human side ability. So designers can already tweak the perception in different ways. And one way is defining how quickly NPCs can understand what they're seeing. And the light condition have a direct impact, how quickly an NPC will fully understand, for example, if there is an hostile in front of them. And obviously, there is condition of light that designers can control, and some others, like the day-night cycle, that they can't. So in this video, we'll see two main elements: the graph on the top left and the two colorful cones. The graph on the left basically represents the current light level the NPC is in, and the current multiplier this light level generates to speed up or slow down the NPC perception and understanding. The two cones instead represents the primary and secondary FOV. The red color means that if you stand in that location, it will result in NPC reacting the slowest to you, and the green color instead represents the quickest response. So during the night, NPC will have a hard time to understand and foresee and see things. But if they have flashlights on their helmets, they can turn it on, and this will impact their primary FOV, making still the peripheral vision a bit more uncertain. And as you see here, first of all, the NPC is patrolling with his domesticated friendly Copion. This is because he wants to exploit the vision, the night vision capabilities of the animal, and it's kind of our tier 0 pets. So we will now look at the cover system. That is the next dynamic things that I want to show you. So when we introduced planetary navigation mesh the first time, our goal was really to create a systems that would support and process the environment in a very dynamic way. Our planets are just way too big to statically export them and process them, first of all. And then their regions only exist when somebody's there and the NPCs are there. So essentially, environment has its purpose only when life exists. Also, let's keep in mind that even if we could export dynamically and statically those planets, so processing dynamically all a static version of the planet, this would be, first of all, wasteful and on the memory side and time-consuming. And also because we have a lot of runtime modification of the terrain, this would require us to still reparse it at runtime, and pretty much that will be almost all the time. So to generate the cover data, we want to leverage the navigation mesh system. And what we do is, as you see here, the blue polygons are basically where NPCs can walk, and the green ones are what we call cover surfaces, that are our simple representation of the environment, what NPC uses to understand if they can hide behind something and if they can shoot from some positions. So up to now, we have had an approach where designer would be a designer-driven approach. Designer can define in the locations where cover was interesting. They could mark it up, either the location itself or prefabs. And then with a special entity that would just sample dynamically the environment, but would still be designer-driven. This is obviously a good approach it's also a standard approach in gaming industry. But what about all those organic and inorganic elements that get scattered with a new system? Like if designers want to iterate on these ones, for example, and they want to change the physical data sets, those scattering tools will just change completely the layout. And what we want is that designers can do this change without being afraid of doing it because the gameplay was, predefined and controlled. And now they can just make something beautiful, but also fun.
I think here, I'm thinking of this, with the dynamic server meshing tech, it's also a way not just to increase player counts, higher player counts, but also with what comes along with servers are memory management tools or resource management. What I'm thinking in regards to server meshing, it's more of a way that they can efficiently use their servers, but also be more efficient with the memory and managing of that memory along these servers as well. And I think once we see the working model in live of dynamic server meshing, I think along with that will come better support for the NPCs due to the fact that if your memory is being managed and being the most efficient, that in turn gives you more of a memory pool, more resources to allocate over to NPCs itself. And with those kinds of efficiencies that are more capable, more apparent in the game, you're able to see better gameplay, more complex commands, or let's say reactions, more complex reactions from the NPCs that will prove themselves to be even more challenging. I'll bet even on the levels of being able to be a team member of actual players in game. And I think it starts with FPS first and foremost, even though the narrative is, hey, with engineering, we want to be able to utilize NPCs as well. I think that's possible with, no different than AI that's controlling. And a matter of fact, did you see that? You all see the sneak peek with now what's coming is AI turrets. I think all of this is based on resource management and efficiency. Higher efficiencies of how those resources being managed, and I totally suspect that dynamic server meshing is a key functional aspect to how that works to allow these resources. And Chris alluded to, hey, why are the NPCs doing what they're doing? Todd Pappy mentioned as well. They need at least a consistent double-digit number of server FPS, and once they have that established, meaning allocated resources, and Chris said they need their own DGS, which is the acronym. They need their own dynamic gaming server. So with server meshing creating efficiencies, then yes, it's easier for them to allocate specific servers, I don't know how many, to those NPCs. Now, granted, if it's running under the hierarchy of the dynamic server meshing, but it has its own DGS, imagine if there's no need to spawn them, right? There's an intelligent spawning of the NPCs. So as we populate certain locations, they spawn. Now, other locations where there's no NPCs, dynamic will not spawn those NPCs. So that allocation of resource pools will be dedicated to where they should be. In other words, the populated NPCs will pull from that pool of DGS resource to make sure that they function and are very efficient in how they implement their instructions. And I think it's very interesting because I kind of think once we see this happen, we're going to say, oh, wait a minute. You mean to tell me dynamic server meshing has helped NPCs and AI as well? I think that's going to click. We're going to start saying things of, wow, they really dialed up the NPCs when it's basically they need a resource pool to pull from. Consistent resources time and time. And so I think there's a certain level of NPCs that will remain in their gameplay. It will remain robust because it has a pool of resources. And those efficiencies will be gathered back via the dynamic server meshing technology. Interesting, man.
Besides that, yes, we did have a prefab approach where you can build stuff out of small building blocks. This is obviously a good approach because it's, in a way, you can build stuff out of smaller version, but this creates a lot of unnecessary data. Imagine a crate, and we can say that the crate can generate cover. Now we stack 100 crates, and what happens? That we have a lot of data to generate cover that we have to process, throw away. This would just waste CPU cycles for nothing. This is why, until now, you also couldn't find an NPC in a forest like this one and see them hiding behind a tree or a rock. So enabling the dynamic generation of covers on the planet allows us to exploit all the elements of the environment. Whenever navigation mesh generates, NPC can now have a chance to fight with you hiding behind available elements. Boulders, rock, walls, and are all useful elements right now. However, we don't have to limit ourselves to static geometries, but also vehicles can be used for cover. And as you can see, this is dynamically generating while the vehicle moves. So be careful where you park your Ursa, because now it can become a source of danger for you as well. Last but not least, these systems can be just used on all the different type of navigation mesh we have, so not on the planet, but also, for example, the interiors and everything you guys construct.
Again, and also another bit of strategy is, can you imagine NPCs controlling an Ursa or some sort of Nova tank, and they're blasting their way towards you, they're getting closer, but also in the back or on straddle on the sides are NPCs that are also looking for stragglers and pressing with their gunfire as well. So those options will bring unique and complex levels of difficulty to our approach, or to CIG's approach, to make the gaming experience that much more difficult, which will equal more fun, because you have to think your way out of that situation or think of a way to circumvent what they're doing. And whether you win or lose, it's all about the challenge.
It's about that bottom line, baby.
Because obviously, you guys will build your own locations, but you don't really mark up stuff, or you don't want to decide that, because that's going to come automatically out of the system. So I want to show you So what I want to show you now is just like a little bit of insight of what goes behind the scene when we generate cover and navigation mesh. These are some of the steps that our system does. So we always start from the environment voxelization. What that means is we process the geometry, the physical representation of the geometries, that is a little bit simpler than usually the render mesh, and we construct it in a voxelized approach. This is also using different types of agent definition. Why so? Because obviously where a human can move is not the same as where a vehicle can move. So we can define different type of precisions and then speeding up the process where we have to, and be more precise where we cannot be to. And we can also create overrides based on different things. For example, if you crouch, you can enter into smaller locations than where you stand. This process is basically common between navigation mesh and cover. After that is generated, then we can evaluate the voxel in different ways. For example, defining where we can walk. So can we make the step with our foot over a specific voxel? Or is there something in front of that hole in the NAM mesh so that we can actually cover behind? And then we can basically decide where to generate cover surfaces. And after the cover surfaces are generated, we can process where the cover locations are. Cover locations are a good spot for MPC to be behind the cover. So what we see here is with the introduction of Maelstrom last year, obviously we knew this
I was
would
just thinking
revolutionize how you guys are playing.
Literally, I was just thinking Maelstrom, and he said it. So, dynamic cover system via the foundation of Maelstrom. We're going to see different types of weapons now that will lend itself to breach. The Legionnaire, think of the Legionnaire, the breaching ship, the Foundation. I think and I'm going to throw a little theory crafting in here, game theory crafting, to the ships, the secret ships, not so much secret ships, but ships that are probably going to go into production if they're not already in production, based on some of the things that we recently heard with the foundational changes of salvage. The structure of the ships are changing. That immediately, when he said Maelstrom, I thought, well, yeah, you're looking at it from a perspective of first-person shooter, but from the perspective of spaceships now. And with that, one of those ships that was held off but was revealed because they didn't have the placement or the anchoring foundational platform to set it up to put it into production. I think it's the Legionnaire. Now with the structural updates to these ships, I'm really thinking that going forward, it's not just. I think the repair aspect is to throw us off our scent, but throw the scent off of them. But I think it's also about that breaching ship. Now that the ships are becoming physicalized surfaces, the hints were with the flight model group. They started implementing, like with the Gladius and some of the other various single-seated ships that will have those control surfaces and atmosphere. That's another hint to me that the Legionnaire breaching ship, the shipjacking ship, will have a place pretty soon in the game, where if you are able to disable specific functions of a ship, for example, the engines, first and foremost, the shields, weapons, whatever the case, that ship can attach or do whatever mechanic that's needed to breach other ships. And it's through usage of the Maelstrom system that will allow that.
And we did have to find a solution to handle all the destruction you can create. So you were destroying so much stuff in this world that we had to find a solution, right? So this is why we approach the cover generation navigation mesh as it is, because there is just no way for us to predict anything that you're doing, and we want just Maelstrom to be another trigger for world evaluation. So as you see, this is all dynamically generating. And destroying anything just makes the war be reevaluated. So, as you see here, we can have also lots of rules. So you can see that a bit here. But when things break, first they invalidate, and then when they rest, for example, we can decide when is a good moment to regenerate, so that we also don't waste too much CPU cycles. The color.
Vulcan again, CPU cycles. But again, going back to the Legionnaire, I can almost see a scenario that there's a procedural thing that you have to take down shields first. Once you've done that part of the mini game with the Legionnaire, whatever group you have, target the shields, take the shields down, disable other functional parts like maybe the weapons, engine. And once shields are done, I'm thinking that Legionnaire can attach itself to the ship. And then you're going to probably see a function that's similar to or borrowed from salvage, where you will then use that fracturing tool, right? How we fracture in the Vulture and other, the Reclaimer. that section, maybe it's a cutout or a highlighted area of that ship, and then it proceeds with the fracturing technology, and then that section of the ship is fractured. You might see a small controlled blowback or explosion or fracturing or some sort of physics and force. If you're near that that breaching area for the ship, it'll knock you on your tush, right? Tookers. It'll knock you back. I've seen the knockbacks before, right? It's the same. You could use the same physics when you jump into quantum and you fall back on your back, you know, fall off your feet and on your back type of deal. And then comes the troopers, the dropship guys out of the Legionnaire, and then you have a gunfight happening. I could see that really soon, knowing that Maelstrom is far reaching than we think. I think it will introduce the Legionnaire.
That you see is mostly cover quality. So you see the light green is high cover, the dark green is low cover, and then we have the red that we introduced some time ago that is basically not really good cover, but if there is nothing better, well, it's better to be behind something than being, you know, in open space.
It's almost like turn-based gameplay.
So let's just recap. What we want to do is finding a plan and having a good plan to approach life in this vast universe. What we want is the life to be able to systemically evaluate all the dynamic environments that is generated. We want to improve our workflow, not only to support designers and being faster, but also support all your guys' creations. So we want the life to adapt, and this is all for making the game fun for you, so that everything comes together. So thank you all. This was phase 3. And now, let's welcome Ben Parry, that will introduce you guys to phase 4 of Genesis.
Thank you. Hello, CitizenCon.
Phase 4 of Genesis.
What's going on? Sorry, someone's changed my lines. Welcome to phase 4, light and sound. Now, we've seen already automated systems for automatically placing different biomes, different vegetation, settlements, and people. So now we're going to take the same approach to automatically handling light itself. First of all, why is this important? Well, it's not always obvious, especially when they do their jobs as well as they do. But there's an incredible amount of attention from the lighting artists that goes into all of the locations that we have in the game. Besides just marking up the reflection probe areas, they also manage the visuals really carefully, adding fill lights, approximating bounce lights off ground and up into ceilings and dark corners where there aren't any direct lights pointing, really. And the problem is, not only does this take a lot of time and really constrain the style that they're using, it's simply not possible. If you've got a planet full of forests and, 3,000 and something placed locations, you're going to be exploring places that no artist has ever visited. No, they've not looked at, and they're certainly not going to be able to have tweaked it for you. So we need something that works completely hands-off. And natural outdoor scenes are especially problematic for us. Indoors, you can put a lot of little lights around pointing from different directions, and you can probably justify it. Outdoors, you've got the sun, and you've got the sky. And if you're behind a tree, you've got the sky. And so you need that skylight to vary.
Oh, boy.
Now, so this is the forest as you'd see it without the GI system. As you can see, all the shadows are receiving lighting from the same environment probe, so it's basically just a flat color across. We replace that with around 40,000 mini ray trace probes. Each of them has their own view of the sky, and so that gives you way more contrast and variation as you move in and out of the canopy.
Interesting.
Now, there are a couple of other pieces of the puzzle that we've been working over the last year. Now, the first is, well, all the stuff that you can't stick 40,000 mini probes onto. Anything that
Transparency is
doesn't have
hard.
an opaque surface, we can't really know where it is on the screen and track it from frame to frame. But if we don't do anything, it's going to stick out like a sore thumb. We've got fog, we've got particles, we've got other little things, I don't know what they are.
Turn on some
and
air.
so we need something to do with those. So to address this, we've added a kind of stable grid of medium-y kind of probes that are generated around the player as you move around. So that gives us approximately matching lighting that we can apply to all of those things. Now, this is a little bit difficult to illustrate in normal scenes, so for once, I've been making my own levels. As you can see, Pico's in trouble again, but because the lighting team hasn't helped, you can't see anything in most of the scene. If you add the transparency GI system, suddenly the whole scene comes alive. And this is something that we could never have done until we added this tech.
Not to confuse what they're doing with Vulkan, and I think it might confuse some people to say, wait a minute, why is he doing that when we basically will have Vulkan? I think in certain locations, kind of similar to what they said with the tools that will help them generate things faster with planets and points of interest, and which they deemed as the hero locations. Those are your handcrafted locations. I think that's where his process will always be a part of that narrative, despite the fact that they're going to use Vulkan for global illumination. It's the best case scenario for them to implement both processes. Vulkan, global illumination on a large scale, it takes away a lot of that handcrafting on the universal scale, whereas what he's talking about when it comes down to mission givers or certain locations that you have to focus on, there's going to be the handcrafted versions of these dynamic environmental pieces of light that will lend to, well, this is specific to this particular mission, or it's a hero location where you actually have to go in and see things a little differently, as opposed to a global illuminated process throughout, based upon Vulkan. This is best case scenario in both worlds. 07 Fimra.
Now, the other piece of the puzzle is glossy reflections. Now, we've got a fair few shiny objects in the game, you may have noticed. And we've got the same problem that if we fix the lighting on one thing and then the reflections don't match, it's going to look terrible. Also, ray tracing reflections is really cool, and we wanted to do it. And the challenge here, though, is that the ray trace reflections you're going to do, they're not just mirrors. Like, we've got a whole range of objects in the game, from like a scuffed hull panel all the way up to chrome polished pipes. And we want the same system to apply globally across that. So I'm going to do an uncomfortably short breakdown on what this tech looks like and how that comes together. So here's what we need to beat. Now, obviously, it reads as shiny, but there's this kind of fakeness to it. It kind of looks a bit like it's flying. So let's see what the ray tracing looks like. Yeah, it's really noisy and horrible. We need to clean it up. So what we do is we let pixels share their data in space.
I'm more efficient.
And then also in time to clear up the final image. And then we let the game's normal anti-aliasing just kind of clean up the last stuff and carry us over the finish line. And that's how you make a chrome penguin. Now, I'm going to derail for a moment away from the topic of Genesis, because this isn't actually just about automating the lighting for new environments. This is also about pushing quality in areas that have already had all of that work done by the lighting team. We're freeing the artists up to light more naturally, allowing the time of day shifts to be embraced rather than fighting against them. And as I'm about to show, players and NPCs are going to reap the same benefits as well. So here we start adding natural areas of light and shade and warm and cool colors.
It's very rich. It's very rich, man.
These open areas benefit in the same way as the forest scene did,
Yeah.
adding areas of shade and
Much
areas
richer.
of open lighting.
Diffuses, it's softer.
Like I mentioned, the time of day shifting leads to different ambience as the sun moves. And this is the shot that I just liked.
I don't know. Some of you will remember this. This, to me, in my opinion, when we were first introduced to the hangars and we were able to go and walk among, inside the ship's interior. I remember the Constellation, and I remember from that point when they started introducing, they used the acronym PBR. I don't know. Some of you may know or may not know, but that acronym PBR was a technology they used that was called physical-based rendering, where the surfaces were not as it looked to. The comparison is blurring the line with it made the scene more realistic, as opposed to it looked a little cartoonish, like it was hand drawn, and it didn't have a lot of depth. When they switched over to physicalized based rendering, I think it was, to me, it was very, that technology, or that phase of changing the game. It's very, it sounds like they're doing it all again on a different level with the new global illumination. And when you see the before and after comparisons, how it gives you more depth of the light, and it feels like it's a little more, it blurs the line a little more to art, or a drawing into more of a 3D environment. That was what that PBR was back in the day when they went over to that process. It's like it's the next step, but a similar update process to make it better visually.
Finally, let's see how the new GI system can brighten up your character's day.
What? Yeah.
And also their day as well.
Yeah. Those contrasts are there. The contrast is there.
Well, I promised you light and sound, but I don't actually know anything about sound. So here's the man who does, Graham Phillipson.
And I believe they have a new personnel there that's charge of sound.
CitizenCon.
He's done a lot of
I've been at CIGE nearly
movies.
10 years, and this is the first time I've done this. Very exciting for me. So, do you want to make some noise? So, sound isn't as fast as light, so it takes me a bit to catch up. Jared wrote that joke for me, so you can blame him. Says it right here, blame him. So now we have a huge amount of visual and interactable content. Locations, biomes, populations, planets, and systems. And now they're all beautifully lit too, thanks Ben. But how do we paint this world with sounds? It's a challenge. It's a challenge of scale. We need to support multiple star systems, and it's a challenge of quality. We want the highest quality possible. We also don't want implementation to hinder creativity, and we want a seamless experience. So we're asking a lot. But with Star Audio, we can rapidly implement audio for entity classes, brushes, or audio sweeteners, all of which can be reused and reflected immediately across the game, including all of those emergent locations we talked about earlier. So again, this is Genesis data driving what happens in-game. And we can do all this without breaking flow. So here's a fairly dry video. It gets more exciting later, I promise, showing you our rapid workflow. So over on the left, I had to think about that, we have the Wise editor, that's where all our sounds live. In the middle, we have Star Audio editor, and on your right, we have an entity that needs some insect sounds on it. So we can very quickly drag from Wise to Star Audio. We can mark up very quickly a bit of logic, and we can re-trigger this entity's spawn sound so that it immediately makes a sound. I assure you there is a group of insects. Thank you, you're too kind. If you like that one, you'll like the ones that come later.
Creatures. Okay.
But there's a little something missing. So to add some realism, sounds respond to how they move, how you move in the world and how they move relative to you. So we need to change the frequency as their velocity relative to the listener changes. This is known as the Doppler effect. In simple terms, the pitch dropping as something whizzes by. Or, in even simpler terms, now, sound designers
sound
traditionally
barrier.
needed to implement their own Doppler sounds. But given how fast we can travel through these rich, dense locations and the sheer number of them, we can't afford to be doing that any longer. So we've created a systemic Doppler solution. And I'm going to show you that now, the only way I know how, by putting a big Benny noodle machine on top of a mountain.
Oh, gosh.
So you can hear the pitch and tempo changing as we move relative to the Benny noodle machine, and this is all fully systemic, no special treatment for this sound.
Oh my God.
And I expect the noodle bar to be very busy after that commercial. So, how does it work? Well, the listener is surrounded by variable time delay buffering, not the horrible kind of buffering you get on the internet. This is a really nice kind that helps the game sound good. Each buffer represents a section of the sphere around the audio listener, and the audio is mixed into these buffers at a position that is appropriate to the object's position in the world. Changes in the position are applied to the delay buffer by interpolating the audio data. But that's not all we're doing here. Now, I know there was a bar citizen yesterday, so some of you may not be thinking as fast as you might normally.
Oh, God.
But you may have realized that by buffering the data in this way, we're not just creating a speed of sound. We are not just creating a Doppler effect. We are, indeed, and I just spoiled my own line, creating a speed of sound effect. So, introducing systemic speed of sound to the game, I now have a couple of minutes of video, and we go through rapid fire, looking at some fantastic examples of what this brings to the game, starting with a spaceship pass by that is supported tonally by the systemic speed of sound.
That's cool.
Okay, sounds cool. What about weapon fire? So let's bring in a sniper and, unfortunately for the sensitive of heart, a Pico. We're going to hear this first from the perspective of both with no speed of sound effect. Okay, so that's, if you were at the Pico perspective there, that's how you'd hear it in game right now. Let's hear it with speed of sound enabled, and this time we're just going to listen from Pico's perspective. So Pico's down before he even hears the shot.
Oh, God.
But don't worry, he's not dead. Okay, let's finish him off. Now he's dead. And as the voice of Pips, power up, I need to get some proper placement in. So there's one more example for you. Now finally, oh, not finally, we have ship weapons, so listen to the fire rate as the ship approaches the camera here, giving you a bit of a sense of threat. It's not too easy to tell what's going on there, but you get an increase in fire rate. Finally, the really cool stuff, explosions. So we can put a cinematic element, a shockwave element, and a delayed speed of sound effects. And that's way too cool to do just once, so we're going to do it twice more from further distance. So again, cinematic effect first when you see it. Shockwave. And the explosion itself. This is all completely driven by parameters in the game, so we can do this for real. Whenever you drop a Moab. One more.
Moab.
That's pretty cool. So the speed of sound simulation gives you a better sense of distance, it improves the sense of speed, and it supports those amazing cinematic moments. So, in summary, we're trying to make the game more immersive and respond to all this Genesis data and make it feel more real. And that's not all we can do. We can make sounds respond differently to changes in atmospheric pressure and resultant changes in temperature. So, for example, the sound will travel faster in extremely hot, high-pressure environments.
I think this is going to be unique for them. I think that's coming up pretty soon. Alien locations, in regards to what they had, what they were working on in Squadron 42. At some point, we're gonna. I think they're going to explore. I know they're going to do this. They're going to explore more alien-like sounds of something that we're not familiar with. I think their challenge. I think this is uniform for them. This is standard, but of course they have to stay at a high quality, where it has to come across in a cinematic way. But I think the challenge for them going forward is to do all things that are alien in nature, that we have to kind of resonate to say, what does that feel like? But it's strange at the same time, that it's believable, right? But not too far-fetched. The challenge for them will introduce alien-based sounds. And I think that's the part where we don't see that yet, but that's coming.
Really look forward to getting this in game for you and getting you enjoying it at home. Now, that's all from phase 4 of the Genesis cycle, Light and Sound. So I'm going to hand you back to the amazing Ben and Ali to bring us home with the final phase.
Thank you, sir. So, as Graham says, this is going to be the final phase of Genesis, and it's called Nature's Wrath. And this is where we're going to bring the very planet itself to life. So, first off,
this
let's
is just
start
the beginning
talking
right here.
clouds. So clouds have got an atmosphere, have got to be one of my favorite visual features of our game, and they're truly awesome, but they're also completely static. Nothing has changed with them. So what we want to bring with Genesis is the evolution of clouds over time. But this isn't just some simple scrolling animation. We use the same physical data sets that drove the biomes we talked about earlier and Starchitect, and these are also now driving a physical simulation of the clouds so they can form and dissipate in realistic conditions. So this means things like the oceans, the prevailing winds, mountain ranges, and the temperature will all impact the clouds. But to complement these more dynamic clouds, we've also improved our lighting model. So it now correctly accounts for how light scatters multiple times inside a cloud. And this is important, creates much deeper lighting, and it can contrast against the sun's rays, resulting in much more vivid cloudscapes like we see on the left here, something we're all too familiar with in Manchester.
Now, it would be awesome to bring this into context and show it on an actual location. Let's take a look at a quick scene to round this up. It's a nice day on the surface, but something's different. The clouds are moving, but they're not just moving, they're forming naturally in changing shape. They dissipate as they glide in the atmosphere based on wind data, stratus and cumulus alike.
We need this, man.
Now we start seeing the new cloud shading model come into play. We are seeing enhanced occlusion beneath the cover, emphasizing the sunbeams how it interact with the clouds, and seeing the light shafts peer through the layers. Now, as this is closing in, we can start to see the changes in visibility of the area.
This is going to be so cool.
Starting. Previously, we authored static cloud shapes, but no longer. We didn't manually place a volume here. Its presence has been informed by Genesis data. Oh, and it's not just a cloud volume. It's a weather front.
Oh yeah, this is going to be the next level.
We're trying to see the wind picking up. Terrain and rocks are getting wet. Vegetation, grass, and the overall environment responding to the weather. The system is changing the world around us.
Okay, keep in mind, rain was the first iteration of literally bringing the storm. The next phase of that will definitely be what we're seeing right here. Rain is already there, it's established, but I think we're seeing it in a small, controlled environment in which they can actually fix and optimize before it's kind of what we've talked about. You remember we call him the river guy, and there was a lot of pushback of this is all the rivers you have, and this is all you work. By the time you get these rivers in, it's gonna take you 10 years. Yeah, we heard all these kind of different takes on the progression forward with rivers, and fast forward. Now we have hundreds of rivers in the game because they only did a small sample size and made sure that everything was working according to a standard. It was very efficient in how it was processed. So again, what you're seeing is a similar thing with rain, and what you're seeing with the storm front, that's going to be introduced later. But I'm wondering, and I'm curious to think, is it dependent on, or is it a part of Planetary Tech 5 in its whole substructure? Is that a part of Planetary Tech 5? That's the question. We know it's coming, but that's the question.
We can see puddles being formed dynamically in the dirt, properly responding to light, reflections, and rain droplets.
Global illumination.
It's getting really ominous and loud in here. I can feel the danger. I think we should let this play out in the game.
Okay, in-game engine. Benoit, he's ahead of it, man. He's a tech. Yep. You see the wind. This is in a controlled environment, a small footprint. Now they need to find the efficiencies to do it, to scale it up, in other words. Again, dynamic server meshing, resource management, culling of resources that are not being utilized due to player population near zero.
We'll need to switch to IFR. See you on the other side.
You better have some boots on. Star boots. Star duckies. Douche. Yes. Oh, damn. Here we go. Lightning storms. Well, that's the coil, right? That's the essence of what the coil is. Now, I'm not sure about his movement, his pace, compared to those containers that was being pushed by the wind. They may have to balance that out. Basically, you're slowed down because the wind is pushing you the opposite direction. This is the make or break whether you gotta make this your home base or not. These particular locations. This is a make or break moment. Don't put your base anywhere. Only difference is, if you have a choice, you want to make the right choice. If you don't have a choice, it is what it is.
It's about that bottom line, baby.
This is about choice or the lack of, where you decide you want your base.
It's getting very sparky up here. Recommend deviation.
Ouch. Okay, that right there is why you need a choice where you live. Whether or not you have a crime stat or not. That's a beautiful effect right there.
Wow! Wow! Man, that's what we call the Falco maneuver, to get out of there. Ali, please break this down for us. What did we just see?
Yeah, so that was a combination of lots of tech we just saw that all combined together to make a really great cohesive experience. So we started with the cloud simulation, which wasn't really a cloud simulation, it's a weather simulation. The rain will appear not at random, but it's based on physically plausible conditions, so you have real weather fronts evolving across your planet all the time. We have a host of visual effects, like the rain, and then you have the atmospheric scattering that you get under the columns of rain. We had the puddles and the splashes and all of this type of visual effects. We saw the wind developing over time,
There it is.
and that introduced turbulence to the flight model, making flight very challenging. And then, of course, we saw the lightning, which plays havoc with your instrumentation, but direct strikes will damage your ship, and of course, some storms will be dangerous enough to be fatal, as Ben's unlucky Aurora just found out.
Oh, wow.
And these storms will sometimes be short-lived and localized, but others will be larger and potentially permanent on some planets. And this is going to restrict access via flight. I mean, players will be forced to resort to ground vehicles or even foot. And this is all going to be dynamic, meaning that you might find yourself trapped in some really unexpected situations.
With that said, and they alluded to that was a fatality for the ship. Thus, based on systems that's not there yet, it's a fatality for the pilot themselves. At some point, I would love for them to figure out or discuss or announce, or that they're working on, or next year, whatever the case, that they have a system where you can, jump out of a ship in the atmosphere and survive, have a means to surviving. Don't know what that could be. Hopefully there's a variety of solutions that the player can choose. Maybe it's one of those jet packs that it has a duration of how, it has a time duration or how long you use it, and then it replenishes again, right? So you kind of have to slow your descent. You play that mini game of you slow your descent prior to touching ground, or you have maybe a squirrel suit, or maybe you have some sort of, which it was on a billboard sign, a little triangular like parachute. But again, choices and varieties that will allow you to properly eject, especially from something like this, that you're not at the mercy of volatile weather and you're in a ship. It's a death sentence for you. It shouldn't be a death sentence for you. You may have to claim the ship, but once we start looking at aspects of Death of the Spaceman, that's an automatic out that will pull into how many times you're able to get back into the game, or your life existence will be snuffed out, because that you could be like a cat of 9 lives. You could be on life number 9, and then something like that happens. You're done. You have to rewrite everything, and it's basically what Chris said, next of kin. You have to enact that based on Death of the Spaceman. So we need the tools, we need the technology that will tell us, hey, we can, if we have strategized properly, we will not be a victim of external volatile things that will, take us out.
So we really can't wait to use all these mechanics to open up many new gameplay opportunities for All in the Verse soon.
A wise yogi once said, "It's your job as a pilot to compensate and stay on course." All right.
Wise Yogi.
What
Yogi
have
the
we learned
bear.
today, guys? We've shown you
Yogi
an
the bear.
approach of encoding the rules of nature into planetary data. We've seen biomes emerge from geology,
Yogi the
temperature,
dev.
humidity, climate, weather, the physical terrain. We create denser, more diverse living planets without artists hand placing or manually creating biomes, instead leveraging asset mapping. We've shown you a new way to make the game that can scale, to create thousands of Korean places for civilizations on planets that can be used for missions or immersion gameplay without art and design, hand placing locations, leveraging world design rules instead.
Yes. Yep.
We've seen how populations of AI and NPCs inhabiting locations dynamically adapt their understanding of the environment without custom markup by developers, allowing the creation of more playable spaces rapidly. We've shown you how light and sound also benefit from Genesis data to influence planetary environments, and we've shown how these systems come together when weather comes into an area, changing your gameplay experience significantly.
Yes.
Our goal with Genesis and all of its systems is to create more worlds, better worlds, faster, by applying our tech wizardry and craftsmanship to build systems that respond to data. That's our Star Engine presentation for today, guys, for this year. Have a great CitizenCon. We'll see you in the next one.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. We may very well see. Did you all get your goodies pack for CitizenCon Direct? Have you all gotten that together? Ian Leyland. This is another rumored location. Based upon the number of planets and moons in this location, not a lot, which is a good thing for the development and process moving forward to get it in our hands.
Awesome.
Ian Leyland.
So this is Nyx system. Nyx was discovered in 2582 by Carl Alary during the height of the newly formed United Empire of Earth's territorial expansion. Its most defining feature,
Black
and
dust
the source of its
cloud.
name, is the sprawling black dust cloud that occupies most of the system. The dust cloud severely hampers visibility and can interfere with your ship's scanners. This system does, however, border
I like that. That
visibility
is
and can interfere. Name is the sprawling black dust cloud
This is
that
interesting.
occupies most of the system. The dust cloud
That is so interesting. One second. Let me get that out of your way. That is very, very interesting. The black dust cloud that occupies most of the system
severely hampers visibility and can interfere with your ship's scanners.
scanning. That is another. Okay, that in itself, scanners. There's a pro and con to both sides of that. For industrial players who do not want to be seen, they can kind of sneak in, deliver their goods and sneak in. But on the flip side of that, potential pirates, the same could go for them. We don't realize that they're there. We're not picking them up on radar. And lo and behold, they pop out and they're all on you. And let's take it Let's take it a little further. NPCs, that could be pirates. That could be vandal raids, basically coming down and cascading and looking to take us out and take our cargo. The one thing I would say to CIG is you can do it one way or you can do this another. There could be instances of pirates jumping in. Let's say NPC pirates or actual pirates jumping in. And to that point, what is the narrative? And then let's bring it up a notch. What about, or what if you have vandal raids that come in and all these activities are happening in real time all at once, meaning the vandal raid, they pop in and they witness that there's pirates trying to pilfer or attack people who are running cargo or any other ship that's not pirate. The pirates are coming in and attacking. So what is the intelligent response? What should that be by the vandal raid? That's the question. And then I think the answer to that, CIG has to get that into focus and make sure that it happens, that nothing odd, despite resource limitations, nothing odd happens. That will be interesting. Now, in regards of the dynamic between NPC pirates and actual pirates, if the actual pirates do not attack the NPC pirates, it should be a neutral sort of interaction between the two. But further down the line, based on, syndicates and rivalries within that substructure, there has to be an intelligent approach to it. If they, like for example, if the actual players are part of Rough and Ready, then you have the enemies of the Rough and Ready gangs. So it should fire off according to what the lore says. That's going to be interesting, but good stuff.
This system does, however, border with Vandal space.
Yes.
So, visitors are being advised there are Vandal raiding parties hitting locations throughout the system. But, despite this, a small community has formed in the system, and this is on an asteroid in the belt between Nix 2 and Nix 3. And this asteroid...
I want to bring something back. What did I just say earlier, chat? I said, according to the sneak peek, AI turrets. What is that going to look like? Or what should that be? Is that an indicator that we're getting Nix? If they're showing the AI turrets as a sneak peek, and they're bold enough to live there, right? The Nix residents are bold enough to live there. I would say, just like Deep Space Nine, you have the means to protect yourself, right? Turrets would definitely be it. That would definitely be it. Let me take a look. I'm going to look at the sneak peek again at the turret. But something tells me, I immediately thought it was probably the Perseus or capital ship, right? But now that I'm hearing this conversation, it could very well transfer over to the subsystems of the Nix location to fight back Vandal raids, right? Oh gosh, that could very well. Let me see here. Nope. Let me see. Hold on. Hold on. Hold up. Wait a minute. Trying to bring the image in. Nope, can't bring it in. Let me go to the website. Go back. I'm thinking. Okay, let it be here. Let it be here. Yep. But yeah, if you go and look at the latest sneak peek, it definitely shows that there is a crate in the background.
In the system. And this is on an asteroid in the belt between Nix 2 and Nix 3. And this asteroid is called Delamar. And here it is, hidden deep in the Glacium Ring. But actually, Delamar should be, and now is, an actual asteroid. And as it's an asteroid, the space is a zero G location, giving a unique identity for a landing zone. So let's take a closer look at the main POI on Delamar.
There has to be turrets.
All right. Awesome, awesome. So, for all that remember, it's awesome to be able to say, welcome back to Levski. And for new players, let me tell you why
My
it's a
beloved
cool place.
Kraken.
This used to be an old mining facility, which was mothballed and then abandoned. There is an internal network of abandoned tunnels and mine shafts, and these are now populated with refugees, fugitives, and criminals. This is also the home to the People's Alliance, who you'll be doing some work for. And as Levski was made some time back, it needed to be updated so that it can fit into current gameplay features and systems and mission loops. So let's take a look at the first.
Chat, there is the image of that new turret for the sneak peek. I really think that is or could be for Nyx Delamar. The turret's there to help push back any attacks between hostiles or hostilities from Vandal and pirates. That's just the same. At first, I was thinking, oh, here comes the Perseus, or here's AI turrets in general. No, I think this is unique for Levski because why? It's a landing zone. This is like it's structured or it's set upon a structure that's stable. Now, it could very well be the Perseus or a capital ship or in general. But if you look off to the left, that looks like a piece of cargo. It's more of, I don't know. I think it could very well be a part of Delamar or Nyx Delamar landing zone in Nyx, the system Nyx.
Update, and that is to the hangars and landing services.
You now have the Polaris. If there's anything that looks similar to that structure, man, I'm gonna see if I can get from here. But you notice those red dotted areas? That could also be placement for the turret.
Release the Kraken!
It's being worked upon.
All right, cool. So Levski is still perched over the borehole, but now has a suite of hangars that are arrayed around and inside the borehole. We're also increasing the quantity of hangars. This is to meet the ever-expanding players per server to remove hangar wait times.
That's so huge right there. I think he mentioned that this is system-wide, though.
And this pass will be done for all landing zones in the game right now.
Exactly. All landing zones. So it's not just the ATC system or the transit system in itself, but it's the way they are going to approach hangars altogether. So what does that mean? What does that translate to? That means the existing points of interest or the landing zones as we know it, that is also going to change dynamically as well. There's probably going to be even more per landing zone, so that with the anticipation of dynamic server meshing happening, then there could be an influx of how many orgs, let's say orgs themselves, deploy or launch from said location, right? Because that's where they're, until we get the base building, they need to accommodate that with dynamic server meshing. I think that we may get the dynamics. There's probably a plan of having dynamic server meshing come in first before base building. See, those little clues right there tells me it sounds like they need, or they're closer to getting dynamic server meshing quicker or in before there's base building. But at that time, you can't wait on the base building to help alleviate, the player population moving or leaving and coming back to, right? So you have to have a fail-safe plan or a stopgap in the event that, dynamic server meshing isn't ready. And also, it also addresses the potential influx of more players now, because it will increase player counts, because they're looking at, when they release Nyx, they're going to do the CitizenCon Direct. They're going to see more ships come in. Crafting, that is the red flag alarm to say, hey, it's come on in the game, right? Because you're crafting now aspects of MMO.
And for players that don't want to store their ship, docking services will be added high up on the cliff walls. Yep. Now, other than hangars and docking services, there are other ways to enter the location, which are also getting new updates. Let's take a look.
Hangar updates. But also, I'm going to jump in again, because I'm going to jump in again. What did Benoit say about the hangar experience? Quartermaster will tell you, Vic will tell you that, I'm at the point where I want to have a quasi experience of base building. I want to load up my hangar to kind of feel like, hey, I'm in the game. And what did Benoit say? Prior to the release of base building, they want to further bring in the modular system within your hangar. So then it's more of an experience of you live there. And what it does to the player counts and the potential uptick of player volumes. Imagine this system being there, right? Now you have the true persistence of hanging out, chilling out in your hangar, but you don't leave right away. So what does it do? It creates a balance. You're in the game, but your instance is there, but other players are saying, hey, I need to go here. I'm going to need to leave here. Everybody is not coming and going all at once because of what they're doing with the adding modularity to the hangar system, and also expanding its footprint. Now you have a balance of the instancing, the draw calls of saying, hey, there's no reason why I'm in this hangar other than call my ship and leave. And that's like potentially hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people trying to do the same thing at once. But if you give the players the ability to launch on a higher volume, but then you also pepper in the instance of them adding modularity to say, hey, I'm not going to leave right away. I'm going to stay here and prep and do things and hang out for a little bit in my hangar before I decide to leave. Balance. Instancing and balance. Good stuff. I'm looking for turrets. I am looking for turrets over here. And that sneak peek. I can't wait to see the market center. That's going to be super interesting. We're going to get a whole new look of that. Oxygen pins, the stock on oxygen pins will go up. All EVA. Cargo's delight. This is Cargo's paradise right here. Still on the lookout for turrets. That sneak peek. place is. Look at the hangars, man. The size of those hangars.
All right, awesome. So around the main entrance, there's still gravity plating for on-foot access.
Gravity
And
plating.
these will lead to open landing
Okay.
pads for quick drop-off and pickup. And we're also adding access to gameplay areas for a variety of local missions and gameplay types.
I'm gonna stop it right here. The gameplay types and missions. I want to see a variety, right? Of course, they have the potential to create a variety of missions, and I think with the ASD missions, we kind of saw a little bit of what's to come, or potentially what's to come. When you have that, you're inside of that room where the gravity was. It goes back to the. I keep saying this is true. It goes back to the. But it was a 2D scroller. But it went back to the days of Strider, where up was down and down was up. Imagine, because now most of Delamar, there's a lot of EVA. There's no gravity. Imagine now you're having a different dynamic of FPS, EPS, EVAPS. I'm gonna call it EVAPS, where it brings in the old school movie Moonraker with James Bond and Roger Moore, James Bond, when they went in space with the shuttles and they were having space battles in EVA. That would be an interesting dynamic of floating, firing, shooting, not being so aggressive because you're exposing your body. You have to be more strategic. This will calm the aggressiveness down of players wanting to run and gun. Now you float your ass out there. You'll think about it. I wanted to say that, and I said it. Don't float your ass out there because you will catch bullets. You want to be strategic. You want to work as a team. I got to see this, CIG, in your gameplay dynamics of giving varieties of what you do. And with that, the incentive is you find something rare. You find something worthwhile with those types of missions, which is EVAPS.
And as you saw in the video, there will be banks of exterior freight elevators. These can be used for quicker gameplay loops without requiring hangar services.
Yeah.
Now,
alleviating
as this
pressure.
is a zero-G location,
He said this too, that along with hangars and landing pads and those services expanding, now you have the ability to not, if it's cargo related, you just pop them off to the grid. You now can start utilizing these tractor beams, staying in one place in zero gravity, and clicking those huge cargo boxes over, dropping them down into the elevator, right? And then they get registered as cargo that you delivered. Love it.
it also gives an opportunity for another type of specialist freight services. Let's take a look.
I love this, man. This is genius. Up is down, down is up. Huge ships, huge space. Can I stop here? Can I go back, chat? I want to go back. I would love to see, like in here, this is potential of chaos happening, right? Right here. I'm gonna slow it down, but this is potential chaos. What I would love for CIG to do, what I would love for them to do, is on your UI, give you splines of saying the spline has an arrow going this way. the spline is going the opposite way. So then you have more of your, I'm using my crisp hands, where you have more of directions, right, on your UI of moving through the boreholes, right? You have your UI to direct traffic. One side is descending, the other side is ascending. Now, you're not stuck on rails. You can do whatever you want, but utilizing that UI and staying on one side to pilot, especially once we see dynamic server meshing become the norm and these player volumes are going to exponentially ramp up. And I think now is the time to anticipate that based upon so many players gravitating to this location. You see that? That little extra bit will never hurt when you're talking about the UI and it's implemented in the game on your interface on the ship. I'm trying to look for those turrets, chat, and they had like those cargo bins around it. And I'm wondering if that is one of the, here, I wonder if that's off to the left is one of the turrets. That red, like, location. Potentially, right? That right there is a game changer. I think, it's far reaching, right? Because, yeah, it could very well be the case. But that does not mean it hinders or hampers them to recycle that tech and place it where it's needed. It would be very helpful when regards you're talking about this is a volatile location, of course, right? So they despite not being supported by the UEE and not wanting their support, they need to be able to protect and defend themselves. And that's one aspect I think will help them to keep themselves established or actually cement the lore where it makes sense, where they're just not floating out there and they're just taking pot shots from pirates and Vandal and they're unable to protect themselves or protect resources that are gravitating or bringing resources to them. Just saying.
All right. So first off, now the borehole goes all the way through the asteroid, which is awesome to fly through. And down at the base of the asteroid, there will be banks of Exterior 0G freight elevators.
Nice.
These will be priority access for Hull series ships. So for all the Hull series folks,
priority access for the whole series, folks. Will that change? Oh, wow. Let him repeat that, chat. Holy smokes. Priority. Wait a minute.
These will be priority access for Hull series ships. So for all the Hull series folks, we got you covered.
Yeah. Wow. Uh-oh.
The same functionality is also coming to space stations in both Stanton and Pyro.
Oh, even Pyro. Oh, quick drop off and run.
There's a little bit more. Let's take a look.
Wow. Cargo services. That changes. Like refinery cargo services have actually come up to the next level now. Now I suspect that salvage will be a thing too. They're gonna have their dynamic. This changes everything about cargo and how it's delivered, how we interact with it. Maybe we get the pallets. The pallet vehicle. Oh wow, that stuff was moving in the outside. They were literally moving that stuff in volume. Coffee, the Kraken is coming.
The
It's been
external
released.
freight elevators will now have direct access to cargo decks to be able to quickly sell or pick up for the next run.
It's about that bottom line, baby.
So that concludes some of the exterior updates coming to Levski. But the interior is also getting some updates to bring them in line with current gameplay requirements. These will be spaces like cargo services, as we just saw, for hauling and supplies, and refinement centers, so you don't need to travel far to refine your ore. And we're updating the interior layout to provide better access to gameplay spaces. So to conclude, Nick's system will be the next system after Pyro. Yay! Delamar is now a physical asteroid with a zero-G play space.
All new now.
All right, not so much. And we're updating Levski to fit current gameplay mechanics and gameplay loops. And most importantly, we're adding local areas for gameplay content.
Wait a minute, he slipped that in, chat. You see that? Gameplay at landing zones. Well, of course they're going through the depths, right? He said it, but he didn't say it. Let me get back a little bit. I think he's probably just not talking about Area 18, but all locations.
Play loops. And most importantly, we're adding local areas for gameplay content.
That could be the clue to say Area 18 will be the first, because it's plural, local areas. But this is about the depths. But also they mentioned that we'll have places to walk to on the surface of Area 18 for people. And I think there may be some gameplay aspects of an urban city at night that's sort of dangerous in locations, certain locations, where you may have to fly there.
Now, speaking of gameplay in landing zones, let's leave Levski for now. And let's jump to Rainy Arcorp.
All right, Rainy Arcorp.
Which is missing the most gameplay spaces right now. So we're continuing the Building Interior initiative. We're adding additional districts to landing zones, which are gameplay focused. These gameplay areas will interweave with the landing zone, but ultimately will be independent. So for Area 18, let me introduce you to the Municipal Works.
Okay.
And this will be split into two locations. The actual Municipal Works, which will be an open world sandbox area for all players, and the lower Municipal Works, known locally as the Depths, which will comprise of several instanced levels. So, how do I get to the Municipal Works? The Municipal Works is accessible in multiple places in Area 18. Some will be available to everyone, and some you'll need to unlock with mission progression.
Very nice.
As an example, here's a map of Area 18 Central. And as I said, there'll be various access points throughout the landing zone, and some will be easier to access than others. These access points will lead to transit systems, taking you deep into the underbelly, eventually reaching the municipal works. And the municipal works will have spaces like maintenance, filtration, and the sewer network.
You know, wait a minute. There we go.
Which is what we're seeing here. It's a very exotic place.
Okay. What's exotic about freaking sewage? Nothing. But what lives there could be exotic. What lives there could be exotic, toxic. The Valacar variant. It's a very exotic. Oh boy, here we go. Interesting.
So down here, it's an open world sandbox for you and other players, very similar to contested zones in pyrostations. It's an area to do local missions, like exploration, repair, or even pest control.
Oh boy.
But the main purpose is provide access to the depths. And these will be instanced areas.
Oh gosh.
So, what is an instance area? Well, an instance area works in the same way as an instanced hangar. And as the name says, it's a separate space for you and your group. But why do we want to do this? This gives us the ability to create tailored missions that will provide a mixture of content like combat or exploration or puzzle gameplay.
Oh boy.
And fundamentally allows us to design challenging, meaningful content.
Oh.
All right, so let me illustrate. Going over here, how the depths will be split by levels. Now, stay with me on this. We're going to rattle through it quick. So let's say you're in level B01. You're running a mission, you're having a great time with the curated content I just mentioned. But down here, you'll have to do a variety of content over a period of time and over multiple play sessions.
Oh, wow.
At the end of the mission, you'll find an access point, which will bring you back to the landing zone. And you'll do this loop multiple times with different mission content.
This, in short, is going to be a grind. Literally, you are going to have to uncover different things, uncover different ways to access more of B01, the first level. It's going to be a grind. Where do you go to? Go to our Discord, Vickers. It's in our Discord. Go to Mining 101. And if I can bring it down to I want to put it in Freelancer Citizen, Mining 101.
After achieving the required amount of progression, your access level will be upgraded. So this time, you head down the access point elevator, and now it takes you all the way down to level B02, and you continue on with your journey.
Wow, the depths.
Now this is your new area, with different mission content, new rewards, and a new access point back to the LZ. The same as B01, you'll do this loop multiple times.
Holy smokes.
And you guessed it, eventually you'll get access to level B03, and we continue deeper.
What in
With
the world?
each level you unlock, you access new areas for new mission loops. You'll access new, more challenging curated content and access better and better rewards. And this is what will form progression-based content. So as I just described, was a very condensed version of an actual play sessions.
So what he's saying is, this is going to be huge, figuratively and literally. This is going to be huge. And based upon this, I think we only get a small sample size. And I think it's a thing about not completing it, but it's getting us enough where they are far ahead of us. Initially getting acclimated to it and playing it, right? Sooner than later. But I think it's an ongoing development aspect as opposed to here it is, it's all done, there you go. I could be wrong. I'm okay with that. But based upon how they're describing this and what's involved, I think it's not a thing of, hey, it's going to take a while. I don't see them holding all this back to say, okay, now it's ready. I think they'll have several parts of it in, or enough that it will keep us busy, all while as they develop and finish, they deliver upon there's a release window of letting it out, of releasing it, putting it in our hands, and it's a continuous thing. I also think that it won't always be a static thing. It's something that they can craft dynamically and change it. But I think the lower depths are here to stay. But the situational gameplay and mission givers could very well change over time. They have a potential here, a strong potential of doing something great.
But this still describes the unique gameplay experience. Landing zone areas which will offer long-term gameplay progression. So that concludes this section on gameplay spaces for landing zone. We're excited to show you more.
Wow.
All right. So we're going to head away from ArcCorp for now. Let's look again into the stars. And now we're going to talk about solar systems.
Again, we're talking about what Area 18 truly is. It's a tale of two cities, literally. This is not going anywhere. This is a structure of Area 18. This is the underbelly side of Area 18. And so it's ongoing. It will ever evolve. It will always be a challenge. New things to interact with, whether it's creatures, chemicals, fauna, flora, people. There's so many things dynamically that they could do to this, that it's an ongoing adventure in Area 18 because it has the potential to evolve. They can take that narrative and place it within another system. Well, not just another system, but another location like Orison or Lorville, where you probably have radicals who are, pro-planet at Lorville and lock down systems and probably try to disrupt the industrial processes of Lorville, where they're really the heroes, but they are the villains, right? So it lends to them telling these stories in these locations and places in a very different and dynamic way, but it ever evolves based on what are the influences within that dynamic.
All right. Stanton system was the primary system in the game. It serves as a lawful system. It's protected by the UEE and will continue to be evolved and updated as we balance it with other systems. Then we have Pyro system, which we've spoken about at length, and this will serve as the primary unlawful system and is the perfect contrast to Stanton. Then, as we just saw, we have Nix system. It's not a totally unsafe system like Pyro, but it depends on where you go, as it borders Vandal space. See that little bit of red? That's Vandal space right there. And the UEE does not protect this system. But we've got a little bit of space there, haven't we? All right. I thought you were saying click system then. I'm like, well, I'm not sure about that one. All right. But we've got a bit of room at the bottom, so it would be a shame not to fill it in with something, right? So if we get a big cheer, we'll reveal the system. You ready?
That was a big cheer.
Very
That was
cool.
a big cheer.
Very cool. All right. Here it is. Oh, wait.
We already know.
All right. Okay. All right. All right. Okay.
People are pissed. Look at the faces. They're like, that's not funny.
So,
oh, yeah. They're booing
let's
them.
take a sneak peek
Oh, gosh.
at system number 4. Here it is. Well, it's awesome, right?
Oh, he's
right.
pranking big
No,
time.
in order to reveal the 4th system, let me take you on a little history lesson. And to do that, we're going to load up our old friend, the Galactipedia. So, we're back in the height of the human-Xi'an Cold War. Tensions were at breaking point.
It's what,
In
twice.
2542, Armistead Perry introduced a designation line for a group of 8 planetary systems that marked the borderlands between Xi'an and human-controlled space. The United Planets of Earth designated the systems as no-fly zones and utilizing them as military staging grounds. But one system on the Perry line offered a key strategic position for a potential invasion into the Xi'an Empire. And that system was
There we
Castro.
go. That came out of nowhere.
But luckily for us, war was averted, the Perry-Line Pact was signed, which was a peace treaty between the now UEE and the Xi'an Empire, so the Cold War ended. The systems of the Perry-Line were divided up between humans and Xi'an, and fast forward back to present day, humans and the Xi'an enjoy a more prosperous relations, and everyone's cool. So, the 4th system will be Castro. History lesson's over, so let's jump in and find out a little bit more. First, we have Castor 1. Here it is. Castor 1 is a dead, coreless planet because it's too close to the sun to be terraformed for human habitation. So instead, the UEE Navy used Castor 1 for target practice, giving it the nickname of Bullseye.
That's a very toxic environment. Can you imagine the rads, radiation, and such that's going to be in this location potentially?
All the weapon testing throughout the Mesa era has left Bullseye covered in craters. And as you can see, it's super toxic, meaning ground exploration will require high-end environment suits.
Yes.
And as you saw in the weather demo, raging storms will create difficulty of access, giving risk and rewards for adventurers seeking unique minables and other items.
Hence, risk and reward. Your mining ship, what is that going to look like? Will we need to retrofit our mining ship via a crafting? Maybe we have to retrofit the hull with an amalgamation or a mixture of some sort of chemical or metal that will resist toxins, radiation, potentially. Or do we buy a mining ship that's environmentally resistant to toxins and such? But like you said, what if it requires us to go out in an atlas and have to hand mine, but hand mine on valuables that are even, twice the value of Quantanium, potentially. So they have the avenue of doing it in a different way or forcing our hand to say, you have to do it this way. Nonetheless, it's going to be interesting how it plays out.
Okay. Then we have Castra 2. The second planet from the sun is called Cascom. And this was the location of the military's staging area.
Interesting looking planet.
Since the system was opened up to non-military settlement, it has since become a center of trade and tourism, but is still considered an Earth-centric traditionalist system, which prizes citizenship above all else. Let's head down to the surface and check it out.
Ascom.
Breaking through the clouds, you'll find a landscape full of Great Lakes and lush crimson forests.
Crimson.
And as you saw in the CTG presentation, you can see how we're going to make these worlds with the new technology. High up on the mountain range, here at the highest peak, we can just make out the landing zone called Sherman. Which is fondly known by its residents as the island in the sky. Sherman is currently in pre-production, but I wanted to take...
That's currently in pre-production. That's interesting because it's just to say, if we get Nick sooner than later, what's coming right after that? Things are ramping up, but it's in pre-production.
The opportunity to show at least a sneak peek. Let's take a look.
Pre-production already. It was just about a year ago. Chat, this is so important right here. It's not, for me, it's not the landing zone that makes this totally unique. I think this is the very first iteration of CIG doing or creating proper mountains. I think that is the sole thing that stands out to me about Castra. There's a doubt of it. Yeah. A fully finished Levski. It's It's going to be interesting, Coffee, once they reveal and then once they talk about what's on the roadmap. It's going to be interesting. But the most important thing in that whole process is once it is released, we're hoping that it has all the supporting parts and factors that will make it an enjoyable experience, such as we need Planetary Tech 5, we need dynamic server meshing to work with it, we need the weather system, we need the clouds redone, we need a better iteration of Vulkan. So that's understandable. But at the end of the day, if they do it and do it the right way, it won't matter. I think people are going to enjoy it even more. Proper mountains. And serious cloud cover here. Serious clouds. These could be very well a back-to-back release once we get Nyx, Levski, should I say. Astro's right behind. And holy smokes, that'd be amazing if we get back-to-back releases. I suspect that they're working on both of these simultaneously. There's a shot, there's a chance that they are. And I say, why not? I do not like the prospect of potential ship crashing. I don't know. I shudder that. I shudder at that. This is huge. Look at that Polaris. This place is huge. Even though it's not commissioned, I believe these weapons, these turrets are still functional though. Don't have a crime stat. Well, have a crime stat, you'll find out. Very nice. And people were excited about that. And it was unpredicted. I think they did a good job of keeping that.
Let me take you
under
through
wraps.
some of the areas of Sherman you just saw. The dominant landmark you see in the center is Spaceport Ulysses, named after the mountain Sherman is sitting on.
Oh, Ulysses.
This is where they staged the bombers that were on active rotation, waiting on any sign of any aggression.
We may see this in Squadron
But now
42.
it's mostly a commercial spaceport. The Navy still has an airbase here, but it's a great place to see some big ships of the UEE. Commercial hangars are located inside the main trench. And even though this is a converted from a naval base, it still has an impressive military flavor.
They're saying that the Navy is still here, so people be advised. The response, the UE response, will be seconds, if not fractional, because I think there will be patrols. There's a good chance that once they really put together the NPCs and really have resources dedicated to them, DGS, dedicated game server, I could definitely say or truly believe that they will have a rotation of, whether they're Hornets or whatever the ships are from the Navy. They will be patrolling, and I think even to the extent you'll see capital ships as well, like the Perseus and such, actually patrolling the areas. So you've been warned, pirates. You've been warned.
And speaking of military flavor, the original AOV-9's anti-orbital cannons are still present around the defensive walls, with most of them being decommissioned once it became a civilian city.
Most, but not
Over
all.
to the left of the spaceport is the Sparrows Industrial Park, home to the sprawling cargo yards and manufacturing plants. The Sparrows has evolved from its days as a military supply and munitions depot into a bustling and modern industrial park. To the right side of the spaceport is Fort Riggs, which originally used to house the Army when Sherman was used as a staging point for a potential ground assault of the Xi'an Empire. Since the area was decommissioned, it has now been turned into a business park and is the governmental center of CASCOM, with the Governor's Council headquarters located here. As this base was built during the Mesa era, as humans were expanding their borders, this introduces a new architectural style for humans. Between the First Travarian War on one front and the Xi'an Cold War on the other, a new style called Henoism arose. With an emphasis on prefabrication and fortification, the designs were robust, durable against warfare and harsh enemies and harsh environments. And from all the locations we just saw, high up on the upper wall, you can see the commercial district, and specifically the Ansel shopping complex. Situated high above the sprawling main base below, the Ansel area originally served as the command center to Sherman's military operations. Inside this building, you'll find key areas like the Edge of Oblivion Bar, which was converted from the old officers' lounge. You'll also find Eckhart Security Headquarters, and you'll find the Mercenary Guild headquarters. The other areas in the commercial district include the OPA towers for habitation. That's the building on the left. And on the right, it's the Imperial Sherman Infirmary.
I think Ian said the Mercenary Guild headquarters is going to be based here, I believe.
There's also the Reeves Military Museum, where you can experience the history of humanity's military and the role that Castra has played in keeping the Empire safe. And finally, we have Overlook Point, which is the name of the vantage point and park situated in front of Central Command, which has the best view overlooking the landing zone. So that's a quick overview of some of the key areas of Sherman.
Yeah, that's some.
I think it's devastatingly beautiful, with a rich history and unique mood and vibe. Awesome. So before I go, I want to thank you all. You are all awesome.
Yes.
All your passion, all your dedication make our lives as devs so much easier.
I don't know about
to the CIG staff, whose do awesome work we're seeing in front of you. So thanks again You are all amazing, passionate, and enabling us to dream big. Enjoy the rest of your show.
Pretty awesome. I think they have the ability, or I suspect that they're working on both at the same time. I think there's numbers. They have numbers. They have over 1,000 developers, and I think those numbers could very well support or allow them the ability to develop on both fronts in regards to Castra as well as the Nix system. This was about a year ago, right? And it's already in pre-production. But I think the most recent thing we did here was that Benoit was looking to bring in 150 developers of his own. In other words, I think he gets to handpick. He knows people. He's aware of people in the industry, but also along with that, you're gonna have probably the board members or members of the board there, like maybe, definitely Chris in the hiring process. But I think there's a level of trust where he brings someone in and he's like, hey, this person, thumbs up totally. I'm not going to say it's a blank check, but I think it's more of specific skills that he's looking for. He already knows, or knows who to talk to and know who to interview in that regard, because he's doing the hiring. And they have a specific number, right? 150. So there's a large talent pool over in Montreal in regards to game development. And again, so how does that relate to what they're doing or what they're trying to produce? It could mean they may find even more efficient ways to produce and get to the finish line what's needed. Even the potential of making it even better. So the timelines, and you leverage the fact that it's been almost a year, but he's also bringing in, or he's pulling in talent, a talent pool over to CIG Montreal. He's ramping up similar to the already established studios and having his own group. And I think the advantage that he has in that regard is they mostly create the tools. So he's bringing on board a large number of skill sets, but at the end of the day, there are going to be a number of devs who utilize or also will be creating tools as well. So it's going to be interesting though, but I suspect that they're working on both locations at the same time because they have the footprint, they have the bandwidth to do it. But again, everyone, 6 more days and we are there at SitCon. It's going to be interesting. I don't know if you've gotten your digital goodies for the event, but I picked up mine. So it's interesting. They're offering two weapon types. What else is it? There's 2 weapon types. Let's see what's all in there. It contains 13 items. A new armor set 1, a new armor set 2, a new undersuit, a new flight suit with helmet, a new jacket, a new FPS weapon 1, a new FPS weapon 2, and a third new FPS weapon. There's the CitizenCon 2955 challenge coin. There's the CitizenCon Direct 2955 trophy. And then you have new decor 1, 2, and 3. Very interesting. So yeah, I picked it up, and in 6 days we will see what all they've been working on and what they will pronounce for 2026, 2025, and 2026. and to how close these developments will happen, they will definitely let us know. So should be very interesting. I think it's an opportunity for them to make a quick point of what's being delivered and cover quite a bit of information and features that they're working on. So it doesn't have to be a long 20 or 30-minute presentation of one thing, but I think it might be little sprints of this is where this is, here's the video, and move on. So it could end up being one of the most efficient CitizenCons as of yet, because it may be chock full of updates and features that we are not aware of, and as well as what they're projected to release in the next year or two. So I'm excited though. But with that said, y'all, it's the start of the week for me. It's been super busy, but I'm gonna be hanging out at CitizenCon, and I'm gonna see if I can pull up a stream or two, maybe get some interviews. I don't know. I'm gonna go for it. You don't know, you never know. You never know. Ask some questions, but not tough questions. But ask some good questions. With that said, everyone, thank you. Thanks for tuning in. And I will see you all at CitizenCon, man. And then what I want to do is have a post reaction of what was shown, what was talked about. I might have a little news myself if it's okay. Might have a little scuttlebutt. But 07s, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you all. 07s.
Let's make it happen, Captain.
Let's go, SitCon. Let's go. Okay.